At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
Pokemon Horizons? Pow World? What does this have to do with this week? Well, you'll find out because we're about to talk all about it on this week's PokeBreak. Hey everybody, this is Professor Chris G. I am one half of your host this week, and on the other line with me, joining me on this month's PokeBreak is my good old pal, the one that's intrigued right now. It's good old Dougie Fresh. Dougie, my man, how the fuck are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, and before we get into the meat of the matter, I want to take a step back and appreciate your intro for the last episode that went out. Because the Puppet Pal stuff went over my head, and you sent me a clip, and as soon as I saw that clip, I was like, I remember this shit.
I knew you would remember it as soon as I sent it to you. But you know what? I chop it up too, because you came down with something nasty in the past few days, and I chop it up to your mind was just leaving you while this stuff was coming down.
Yeah, because we were recording that episode, and I was starting to feel something, and I don't know how much of it made the edit, but I was getting, and pardon me if anybody's eating out there, I was getting kind of snotty, and yeah, and then I woke up later the next morning, and I was like, I don't want to move.
Yeah. I think you caught the bug that everybody's catching, bro. Like I caught that bug, but you must have a better immune system, because when I caught that bug, I was done for a week. Like
yeah, we were getting ready to record, and you texted me, and you're like, I have no voice.
And then I called you like a few days later with my voice coming back somewhat, and you told me, you're like, hey, Barry White. Like my voice was not there.
Yeah, I mean, it was that you were trying your damnedest, but it just wasn't making it.
No, it was not. At least you didn't lose your voice. So, I mean, I appreciate that. But yeah, I figured you would enjoy that intro, and Puppet Pals, that's a huge flashback. I mean, I know if you're a little younger than us, you probably don't remember those, or you might, because Cartoon Network, for whatever reason, brought back Dexter's Laboratory. Well, they brought back all the old episodes, and they've been playing them every single day around like between 6 and 7 at night, and they'll play it for a whole hour. So I don't know what sparked them to bring back Dexter's Laboratory again, but I mean, I'm kind of glad that a lot of the like newer generation gets to experience what we got to experience as children.
Yeah.
So
except it's got to fight harder for their attention span than it did for us.
Yeah. That's 1,000%, bro. But yeah, so, bro, there and correct me if I'm wrong. So I had 3 topics today, but I can only remember Power World, Pokemon Horizons, and what was the other one that?
The DLC.
DLC. All right. So yeah, we'll get into all that. So, okay. So let's go ahead and start with the number one topic, something that we started talking about last week, and try to like give a little bit more of a dive into what this POW world is It's huge comparison to Pokemon, which, okay, now that we're finally that we're able to, and we have a little bit more time. Yes, the game has creatures that look kind of like Pokemon. Okay, but
there's a couple where it's like that's definitely Raichu, and
there's one that looks like Lucario, and I'm dead on. I'm starting to think that they used AI to create some of these. Like they're like, okay, make a Lucario, but make sure it doesn't look exactly like Lucario.
yeah, like take like 20% off.
Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking that they did. I don't know. Um, but that being said, yeah, I can see the comparison, and I can see like you have these PAL balls, and that you're throwing them to capture pocket pals, and but the game itself is a huge survival game. So
Right.
uh, does it have like Pokemon aspects to it? Yes. Would I call it a Pokemon game? No. Why? I have a couple reasons. One, these pals don't evolve. So what you see is what you get. And they level up with you, so that they can do more, for whatever their job is to do inside of the game. You use these pals to kind of help keep your base nice and clean, and so that they can defend your base while you're gone, yada yada yada. And you start the game off, and I'm not giving any spoilers. This is literally the base of the game. You start the game off by basically kind of having amnesia. You must have been sailing at sea or something, and you end up, something happened and you washed ashore, and these pals are looking at you in the face, and you wake up and you scare them and they run away. You meet someone in the beginning of the game, and you literally find out that these pals are not what they really seem. That if you leave your guard down, these pals will eat you. That one of the people in one of the MPLs in the game, or yeah, non-playable
NPCs.
NPCs. I said MPL. Yeah, one of the NPCs in the game literally said that she came to the island with like 10 or 11 people, but she's the last one because the pals all ate her friends.
Oh.
Yeah, which is why they give you guns in this game. You can craft guns. If anything, I think it's more along the lines of Digimon, because there's like a Vulpix type pal in this game. It literally looks like a fox. It doesn't have the tails like Vulpix, but you can literally pick it up, tuck it up under your arm, and you tug on its tail, and you use it as a flamethrower.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I love that fox. You can put saddles on some of these pals that are big enough, and you can fly on top of them. You literally get to fly around the world, or you can ride around on something that looks like it's a llama, and you can ride around. And it's a survival game. Your guy gets hungry. The more you do, like when you're like using a pickaxe on a rock to get some like stones or some crystals, or anything like that, your guy gets hungry. The more that your pals work on your ranch, they get hungry. So you need to make sure that you're either finding berries, or you're killing some of these pals and taking their meat, so you can bring it back to your base so you and your pals can eat.
Mm.
So the game is very strategic. It does seem like it's like a Pokemon with guns type game, but the more and more that I play this game, and I've gotten up there in level. Like I think my wife wants me to get off of this game because I think I'm making her mad with how much I'm playing this game. But the more and more I play this game, it's not really Pokemon. I mean, the creatures kind of look like Pokemon, but where do you really draw the line when it comes to creatures? Because, I mean, you have a million cartoon shows, and you can say creatures look like Pokemon. I mean, you have Yu Gi Oh! And you can literally say that some of Yu-Gi-Oh's monsters could be like extreme, like Pokemon. Like you have some cute ones, and you have some like big beasts. Like I mean, I haven't played Yu-Gi-Oh in a long time, but so I'm gonna just name one that I remember that was a killer: Blue Eyes White Dragon. And you have this big old dragon, or you have Digimon, who starts off as a little cute blob, goes into something that can walk, and then out of nowhere goes into something that has like a million different guns on it, and is a freaking badass and looks nothing like the original form. So where do you really draw the line? Like I know Pokemon made a statement saying that they're going to investigate on the game, but quite honestly, this game um, was thrown out there like in trailer form about 2 or 3 years ago now. So if Pokemon had a leg to stand on, I think they would have gone after this game back then. And they kind of felt like they were obligated to make a statement because of the game being dubbed Pokemon with Guns. But outside of that, I don't think Pokemon really cares too much in regards to this game. Unless, I mean, I did hear an assumption that because Power World has passed over 8 million as of last night sold copies of this game. And maybe Pokemon is like, okay, let's let them make all this money and then sue them for every dollar that they have, and maybe we take the $100 million that this game has occurred, and we just take in that money for ourselves. I mean, I did hear that. I doubt Pokemon is gonna do something like that because Nintendo and Pokemon don't really play when it comes to their copyright. So, I mean, how do you feel like hearing me talk about this and hearing the little things that you have heard, Doug, in
Well,
regards
and
to this game?
I think you can kind of piggyback off of what we said when we talked about it before we reviewed the last episode of Pokemon Concierge, because at the time of that recording, we had seen the statement that Pokemon was like, we'll look into it, that kind of thing. But I think they released that statement because they got sick of people tagging them like, hey, are you really going to let, this Pokemon with Guns game go? Are you really not going to say anything? I don't really think that they're looking at it to take it down. I mean, yes, you brought up the fan mod that got DMCA'd,
Well, that
basically as
that
soon as
that
it
was
got
literally taking Pokemon's characters and putting it into this game, and Pokemon don't
right.
want that.
Right. So as long as Pal World doesn't come out with an update and they have a creature literally called Pikachu or called Meowth or called Arbok, as long as they don't start using names, I mean, as long as it's just kind of like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Like you sent me something here on Discord, and my first thought was, well, that's an Eevee crossed with a sheep. I mean,
Yes.
if that's as far as it goes, and like I said, it's like you can look at some screenshots and go, "Oh, look, that's Raichu right over there." But like, that's Raichu because I know what a Raichu looks like. I mean, as long as it only goes that far, and as long as a guy doesn't walk up to you in Power World and say, "My name is Gary Ketchum" or whatever. I mean, as long as they don't start getting too bold and literally biting names off and stuff like that. I think it's more along the lines of them going, all right, we're aware of the game. We're going to look into it with quotation marks,
Yeah.
but we're not trying to go after a little studio.
On their
And
first big success.
because, like you said, where do you draw the line? Because, like, I was listening to a podcast last night, and they're like, I mean, if you really want to get granular, the crafting elements feel a lot like not Breath of the Wild. What's the latest game? Tears of
Oh,
the
Tears
Kingdom.
of the Kingdom. Yeah. Like they literally have music in the game that sounds so similar to Tears of the Kingdom, bro. Like like when you launch the game up, it literally sounds like Tears of the Kingdom launching up.
Right. And it's not like, you know, it's not like it's a slap together like an obvious like Mario World clone or something. Like, yeah, there might be elements where you're kind of like, that feels Pokemon-ish, but if it's literally just cosmetic and they're not out there stealing names of copyrighted character, like you mentioned copyright,
Yeah.
I mean, as long as they're staying clear of that, I don't think, you know, the Pokemon company is going to come at them, with their knives out
Excuse me.
because they're not um they're not deliberately going into their territory and being like, we're making an edgy Pokemon game. It's like, no, we're making a edgy game with Pokemon like creatures.
Yes.
And if you think that they look like Pokemon, that's not on us. That's your mind filling in blanks that may or may not be there.
Thank you. So
So,
I'm 1000% in the camp that this game will probably have sequels down the line, and that this game is going once it's fully released is going to play a huge part in some. I think this is going to be a kick in the butt that Pokemon kind of needs, and we're not gonna see any type of change to their game until like 2 or 3 years, because it takes time to build a good game. But they're gonna look at this game and be like, okay, all these people that are playing this game are very curious as to doing different things in Pokemon. What can we take that's from this, but make it our own? To where it doesn't seem like we're trying to copy the little man. So I think that's where it's going to end up lying, Doug.
and I think you just hit the nail on the head. I don't want Pokemon to see what Power World is doing and overcorrect because I literally don't want Pikachu running around with a bazooka.
I don't
Like,
either.
oh, oh, you like creatures with guns. We've got the OG creatures. We can give them guns. Like, no, you missed the point.
Whoop whoop whoop. Bring it, reel it back in, reel it back in. But yeah, I don't think that they're gonna, because Pokemon is. I mean, Pokemon are friendly creatures. Like, and I mean, yeah, you have some bad creatures in the Pokemon world, but we've been trained to find out that Pokemon come out pure, and the only reason that they would be bad is if they have like a bad trainer that trains them that way.
Right, and I mean, we've even seen examples of that where we've seen Team Rockets, Ekans and coughing, before they evolved, obviously. We saw them have moments of humanity. Heck, if you think about it, and I'm just thinking about this now as I'm saying it, they only evolved because Jesse and James were in a spot where they needed help.
Yeah, they did.
So, and Meowth has had his moments. He had a whole episode where he was playing a good guy for that kid. I mean, so yeah, I don't think there's any bad Pokemon. I think it's kind of like it's kind of like the rap that like pit bulls and Rottweilers get. Oh, they're vicious dog. Nuh-uh.
No, it's the person that trains them to do that stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
so yeah. So I'm gonna kind of put a stamp on this. I mean, yeah, maybe I'll give a few updates here and there, but Power World, in my official statement, it's not Pokemon. It's a survival game. It takes different elements of different types of games. Pokemon being one, maybe Tears of the Kingdom a little bit. My son brought up Minecraft, and he's like this game. I mean, you're building stuff just like you would in Minecraft. And then he's like I can see a little bit of this being kind of like Fortnite. And he's like, when you get a whole bunch of people together, because you can fight each other and you can kill each other and you can take their items and stuff. So it's taking a whole bunch of different games, but just because there's 111 pals inside of this game that are kind of similar in a way to Pokemon, that people just ran with it. And maybe that's what Power World needed. I mean, they got compared to Pokemon, and all these people that play Pokemon are like, ooh, I want to try to play this game. So they got right off the bat, within the first week of it being released, got over 8 million sold. And if you bought it within the first 3 days, the game was only $23, and now it's like 30 something dollars now. And so if you take even if you lowball it at like 23 and you do 23 times 8 million, I mean, you're going to get a huge number. That is a huge profit for this low budget game that they made, bro.
Yeah, and I mean, all that comes from, it comes from people legitimately wanting to play it, and then, all the credit to them. They took advantage of the controversy that was generated by people running off at the mouth about it, and they're just sitting back. you know I mean, you might say, well, they were a little murky because they didn't come out and deny anything. Why would they deny anything? Their game was getting buzzed,
Yeah.
and they knew they weren't doing anything wrong.
So they're just
you
sitting
know
back and raking in the money. I mean, honestly, these guys, they don't even need to work anymore. I mean, yeah, I'm sure they're going to update, and because this game still has the big thing on the top of the game, like on the artwork on the cover that says early release, which means that, and every time you log into the game, you get a paragraph saying that you might encounter bugs in this game. Oh, and I'll tell you about a nasty bug that I found, but it literally says you might find bugs and crashes within this game because this game is not finished yet. We're having you guys test this game out. We're taking feedback, and we will update this game appropriately. But bro, let me tell you about a bug that I had in this game that pissed me off for like maybe 2 hours, bro.
oh
Oh, it was a bad bug. And I wasn't the only one, because I went to Reddit to find out if others had encountered the same thing. But there was a bug in the game where if you died in the game, for some reason, some files on the server would get corrupted, and it would.
oh no.
Well, your stuff is still saved, but the game for some reason made a copy of you. Okay.
Made a copy. Okay.
So you literally had a doppelganger in the game, but you couldn't control the doppelganger. As soon as they created the doppelganger went running, and he just went running and doing his own thing. So in the game, if your guy's not wearing a certain piece of clothing in the game, when it comes to nighttime, you have to be next to a fire, or you have to hold a torch, or you will freeze to death. Okay?
Oh damn.
So when this happened in the game, my guy didn't have armor on yet. So he's running
Right.
through this game, and once he got to a certain spot in the game and it was nighttime, my guy was losing health like crazy. But then when the sun came back up, my character must have gotten into like battles with other creatures somewhere, and my guy was losing my guy at the time, because you start the game with 500 HP. My guy was
Mm.
losing 3 HP every second as
Ooh.
I'm walking, and I'm not even fighting anything. So within like I think it came down to every like 3 or 4 minutes, your guy would just die. And it didn't matter what I did, it didn't matter anything. And I found out that I ended up having to reset the server in order for my doppelganger. I had to reset the server and turn the game fully off and clear my cache and everything, jump back into the game, and then my doppelganger was gone. But there was some people out there, because I guess Pal World put out a patch to this, to where like if your doppelganger is created, that all you have to do is exit the game, come back in, and then your person's fine again. But there was people before this patch that no matter what they did, even if they reset the server, their doppelganger was still there. So in order for people to enjoy this game, if you grind it all the way up, and I'm just going to give it like a level 14 in the game, which is still pretty early, and you couldn't do anything, the only thing you had to do was delete that you at that time was delete your file and start all the way over again.
And that's frustrating. I don't care what game you're playing.
Yeah. So luckily my patch actually came in maybe 4 hours prior to my doppelganger getting created, but I didn't know anything about restarting the server until I got so frustrated that I just went back to the main menu, and I just went on Reddit, and there was so many people talking about it, and I was like, okay, well, I guess this is what I have to do it. And as soon as I did it, my guy was fine. But boy, I was mad for just a little bit, bro. I was legit pissed.
For real. And I mean, I think that just comes with playing with comes with the territory in terms of like playing games in pardon me, in 2024, because it's like, like I'm hardcore into Madden, and if I run into a problem where something is bugged and I can't progress, my first instinct is to check Twitter and see if how much of the community is affected by this, and if every like other comment is WTF is this bug, I'm like, okay, I don't have to freak out because enough people are going to be tweeting at the helpline that something's going to get, and 9 times out of 10 something does get fixed.
but
But
but it takes
it's
time,
those
right?
odd, it takes time, and especially if something happens on a Friday late because people go home for the weekend. But it's like it's the odd occurrences. It's like, okay, I can't do this and nobody else is talking about it. So, my shit is either bugged or I'm further along than everybody, which, I mean, that happens from time to time. I mean, I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal or anything, because there are like some professional ass Madden players that, as soon as new shit's out, like they're as far as they can be. And it's like, oh, well, you do this professionally. I mean, that's the kind of shit you put on your taxes.
Well,
It's like, okay, well, that makes sense. But
Well, that and you also have to remember they probably get early access to the game, to
yeah,
where
yeah.
when you start off, they're already 10 steps ahead of you, and you're like, how do they have all of this stuff already? Because they got early access, because they're well known, or they know people and they got a code and they got to test the game out. Like there's a certain game that I actually personally got to test, and I talked to you about it. I'm not going to name the game because I'm under an NDA. But when this game comes out, I'm levels above what the regular person is going to be when they start this game out. And this game is coming out in probably 3 or 4 months now. And I mean, that's just the nature of it. We got to test this game out, and we're just. It's not that we're better. We just we learned about this game, and we saw what this game was in its early stages, because this game that I was testing went through a lot of stages, bro. And like what the controls were from day one that I started it to what it was right before they said, okay, we're done with the play tests for this game, because I can't play it anymore as of right now. But
Right.
but um, but they said that all of our save data and everything is still there. So when the game comes out, our progress is still there. So yeah, it's just it's one of those things, and I forget the point that I'm trying to make here. I'm not trying. I wasn't trying to to like brag about playing this game. It's just that's what happens when you jump onto these servers and the game just came out and people are like levels above you, and you're like, this game just came out, how are you all the way here? But that's literally what happens. People get codes. So
Well, and on that topic, and I know it's not Pokemon related, but this is a PokeBreak, so it's not like we have an episode we got to get back to. Certain games, like the Suicide Squad game, is about ready to come out in early access. I think on
Tuesday.
Tuesday,
Yep,
I
Tuesday.
believe, and
Because the game comes out Friday, so you people that get it get 3 days to play it before it comes out.
but what's coming out is they haven't sent out review copies to these outlets. So people that purchase the deluxe edition for the 3 days early access, you're essentially the testers for the people that are going to get the standard edition.
Oh, that's kind of a.
So,
I mean, not to shoot on them or anything, because I know that they're a bigger company and they know what they're doing. But that's kind of an ass backwards kind of thing. Normally, you want people to test this game out and give you a little bit of feedback before you do anything like that.
yeah, so you're basically paying an additional like $30 to be a 3 day guinea pig.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too like I personally haven't made the move. I'm probably going to get the standard because I have been seeing a lot of positive stuff about content at launch, and they said all DLC is going to be free, and
Oh, that's
so
nice.
like I'm all the way in to get the standard version, and I probably would have bought the deluxe version if it was only like 80 to 85, because the standard there or pardon me, rather, the deluxe edition of the Spider-Man 2 was only 86.
And
With
this game is, and nothing against the Suicide Squad, but this game um is no Spider-Man. Something
no,
that,
it's a completely different game.
yeah. So, and Spider-Man, nothing, like I said, nothing against them, but everyone and their mother was talking about Spider-Man before Spider-Man came out. And even though Suicide Squad is getting a little bit of buzz, it doesn't have that Spider-Man buzz.
And it does have buzz, but it's kind of like 50-50 buzz, because this game was supposed to have been out for I think almost like maybe a year at this point, but it got pushed, and there was certain times where you and I were talking about it, and you were like, "I'm convinced this thing isn't coming out," and
Yeah.
um, I couldn't form a an argument against that, and and then people weren't reviewing it, and it's like, okay, that's not a good sign. But then, like I would say, since the beginning of the year, like there's been more and more content, and people that talk about it on the regular have been more and more satisfied, and they've like really started to
Turn the corner on it.
throw out details, and it's like, okay, I think this game is going to be at least worth $70,
For the
at
base.
launch for the base, right? And
Yeah.
especially, if you don't have to turn around and pay, $20 for every bit of DLC that comes out, cough, AEW Fight Forever, cough. Um,
That game is, I'm sorry, but that game had so much hype behind it, but it took so long to come out that when that game finally came out, it was such a letdown. Like I'm convinced that they had no idea what they were doing, and I still don't think they know because I mean they're putting out extra DLC content and stuff to the game, but they're not really adding to it. It's such a bad game in my eyes.
no, and I'm getting ready, at some point next month, I'm getting ready to drop, 100 for the next 2K game because I know what I'm about to get.
Would you pay for another AEW game?
Uh, Not for the deluxe and not for every bit of DLC separately. If they had a fully dedicated pass where it's like you could pay $20 and you get every bit of DLC and you don't have to pay separately, maybe. But I think I would be waiting in the cut and looking at some reviews and
I think I'm in that camp too. I'm if they made a sequel to if they made a full blown sequel or the same production company made the next AEW game, I can 1000% tell you I'm not buying it. And the only way that I would actually play this game, because me and my cousin, we share PlayStation games, and I know 1000% that he would actually buy it, 1000% because he actually liked the game. So if he bought it, I would probably play his copy of it because we share and see if I would even like it. And if I did like it, then I would buy it because my son would probably like, if I like it, my son's probably going to like it and he's going to want to play it. Then I'm going to have to buy it for him. But
right.
outside of that, I don't think I'm spending another $60 on that game because that game was such a letdown. And my son didn't even, my son played that game for all of maybe like 5 or 6 days and called the game garbage. So,
And I mean, he's not necessarily wrong. He might not be 100% right, but he's not 100% wrong either.
yeah, I mean, because it's his opinion, and he's not the audience that they were looking for. They were looking for the retro WCW, Nintendo 64 players, um, like they were looking for that audience,
Yes.
and that's a really older audience that you're looking for when it comes to a video game. So
Well, especially when, like I said, you can look across the street and you can see 2K. Now, AEW is going for a more arcade and 2K is more simulation. So, I mean, they've got their own audience, but
yep,
yeah. But I can watch this. I can spin this
okay.
because we were talking about video games and DLC. How are you feeling about the new Pokemon DLC?
I liked it. It was cute. I don't know why I got all up in arms getting ready for this epilogue. Because the epilogue, I ended up completing the epilogue, I think, in probably an hour and a half.
Ooh.
I think the runtime for it in real time was like 45 minutes, but I was doing some extra things in the game. But it took me about an hour and a half to complete the epilogue. So I it's not bad. I mean, you got some new Pokemon. I'm not gonna full blown go because it's still the epilogue is still fresh, so I'm not gonna go and this is not the podcast to go and spoil things. But you get a few new Pokemon. You get a few different raids. You get to add to your national decks and in some ways on this new island that you are. And the game does kind of go like before the epilogue. You do get a deep dive into like an extra part of the story of the game, which I really appreciated. Um, Now, Pokemon being Pokemon and Nintendo being Nintendo, if I didn't like so for the DLC, so for Scarlet and Violet, so they both got the same type of um, DLC, okay?
Mm.
But so I in my household I have both Scarlet and Violet. I'm playing Violet, my son plays Scarlet. And my son wanted to play the DLC and I wanted to play it. I thought that if you went online and you bought the DLC that it would and as long as it's on the same console that everyone got to play it. But you actually had to purchase separately one copy for Scarlet and one copy for Violet, which in the DLC was like $40 a piece. So I had to spend $80 for me and my son to be able to play this. I'd feel a little better if I was able to just buy the DLC and it just went to both files of the game, but it didn't do
Right.
that. But I mean, I see what Pokemon's doing. I mean, they're treating it as two different games, which is what they've always done. So I didn't bitch and complain about it. I mean, I rarely spend too much money on video games these days. So on the video games that I really enjoy, I'm gonna spend that extra coin because I mean in my household we have Game Pass. So I mean
Right.
we play so many games on Game Pass. I'll spend money on 2K and I'll spend money on Pokemon, and there's probably a few more games out there that I would like Diablo. I'll spend money on Diablo 4 for the PS5 and all that. Um, but yeah, the game itself, it was good. It was really good. I think I'm gonna give it about another month, and I'll probably do a little bit more of a deeper dive into this. But since the epilogue is only 2 weeks old, I can't really talk about the previous stuff without getting into the meat and potatoes of what happened at the very end. So, but I will say that I thoroughly enjoyed it. If you haven't played it yet, go and play it. And while you're at it, go and spend $30 and play Power World because I know you're very curious out there about playing that game. So outside of that, yeah, that's really all I really have to say in regards to the DLC. It's really good. It's really good. And they this is the way that they should have done the DLC for the previous Pokemon games for the Nintendo Switch. So
Okay.
I'm kind of sad to say bye to a lot of these characters because within the past 2 years, well, within the past, yeah, 2 years now, going on 2 years, I've gotten used to the characters in this game, and I'm wondering because we're about a month away now from Pokemon Day because Pokemon Day is next month, and I'm sure they're going to announce the 10th generation for Pokemon, or they might take a year off and just wait for the Nintendo Switch 2 to come out, and maybe they release the next Pokemon game on the next console. Nobody knows yet. We're all anticipating some big announcement coming for Pokemon Day in the next month. So I know when we do our next PokeBreak, that's what I intend on kind of reviewing. I'm planning on reviewing quite a bit for the Pokemon Day release on YouTube. So, and I'm sure I'll send you a link as well, so you're kind of in the know about the certain things that's gonna be coming out, bro.
Right. Yeah. Because I imagine that'll be, the majority of our talking points, and those are always good episodes because that those little, Pokemon Presents always kind of give us a nice little roadmap of stuff to cover. So those are always like
Yep.
really anticipated breaks.
So, and I'm gonna twist this because I'm so excited to finally talk to you about this, bro. So well, I'm gonna preface this as Netflix has the English version of Pokemon Horizons that's getting ready to be released in March, but the first 16 episodes have been released in English somewhere in the world. And those episodes have fallen online. You can Google it. You can find it anywhere. I'm not going to tell you where to go, but I mean, if you're savvy enough for anime on the internet, you'll find it. But you have finally seen the first two English episodes of Pokemon Horizons, bro, and I want your take on what you saw and if you're excited and what you thought. Like go into it for me, bro. I'm so ready to hear you talk about Pokemon Horizons.
Well, yeah, you had mentioned, because we were getting, we were kind of trying to get stuff lined up for like what we wanted to talk about, and you're like, I'd like to go into a little bit of Pokemon Horizons. So if you've got some time, maybe you can watch an episode or two. Just kind of, you know, get familiar, kind of dip your toe. And you were kind enough to send me a link a while back, so I was able to go and I was able to boot that up, and I watched. I ended up watching the first two because I watched the pilot, and it kind of ended on a cliff. I mean,
Literally a
to be,
cliffhanger.
oh yeah, I suppose so. So I was like, well, I have to watch, and I mean, it turns out that episode two was basically part two, so it made sense. And I mean, technically, episode two ended on a cliffhanger as well. So I mean, I think these episodes are going to follow a little bit more of a chain than maybe like some of the Kanto episodes I might be familiar with.
Yes.
So
They
I kind of went into it because I was like I was intrigued because um, the next series was something that we were kind of following as we were reviewing Ash's final episodes. So to finally get a look at it with the English dub was always a plus. So, I can't go too far because like I say, I only watched first two episodes, but I really enjoyed what I saw because pretty much from the second half of the pilot, they basically took you as a viewer and said, you are in this world now. This world has been happening around uh, our protagonist, and she's just getting thrown in the middle of it. And you're getting thrown in the middle of it too. You're not going to get a full 20 minutes of Ash Ketchum running around in his pajamas throwing a rock at a Spearow. Like, this is somebody who may not necessarily be familiar with Pokemon, like in terms of like being a trainer or what have you,
yes.
but she's capable of logic and thought, and she actually seems like she wants to learn lessons as opposed to somebody like Ash who had to have his lessons drilled into him. And
Preach it, brother.
they didn't treat, her first handful of battles as full episode worthy things where it's like, oh, she learned how to do this attack and it only took 5 minutes. Like, no, her first couple of battles were literally covered in like two sentences in a montage. And she's not perfect. I mean, at least at my vantage point.
And, well, I think what you're trying to say, they didn't treat the audience like we're stupid. I mean,
No,
and not to say that they did that in the original, but they kind of held your hand in the original because the original for every episode could be someone's first episode. In this,
right.
they want you to watch that first episode. If you from what I've got, I've watched the first 11 episodes in English. So you can't start this show on episodes 7 or 8 or 9 and 10. You have to watch it from the beginning to find out why is this happening? what is going on here? Why is this going, what's going on here? What's going on with this pendant? What's going on with Roy? And they literally tell you, okay, if you want to understand this show, you need to watch it from the jump, and we're not going to hold your hand. But if you go back and you watch it from episode one, you will understand everything when it comes to this TV show.
Right, and I did enjoy, because I mean, I will say I was a little confused because, like, the first, like, what, maybe 5 minutes or so, she was talking to somebody and she was like, "Oh, I can't wait to find out who my Pokemon partner is going to be." And it got to the point where, like, I think they said it like 3 or 4 times, and I'm like, are they literally just going to give a Pokemon to this girl and, like, not let her choose? Well, come to find out, she chose, but they didn't really frame it like that. It kind of, I mean, obviously, she had the added benefit of not being late and only having one Pokemon to choose from.
Yeah.
But it is, pardon me, it is a selection, but it kind of sounded like, because she kept talking about, like, her entrance interviews and stuff. And at one point, I thought they were going to kind of take that and they were going to kind of take, like, some answers that, like, maybe she gave, and they were maybe going to match her with a Pokemon, which would have been an interesting concept.
It would have.
But I did like that it was a choice, and I like this generation of Pokemon. Like, looking at the three starters. Um, Definitely would have been a Quaxley guy. I
You're always a water guy, bro.
Well, that's not true. I chose Charmander. Um, and I'm pretty sure I chose, gosh darn it, what was the chicken that turned into Blaziken?
Oh crap.
Torchwick?
Torchic. Torchic.
Torchic. Yeah, but I mean, I have been water in the past. Like, I was definitely Totodile,
Yeah.
but yeah, it just, because I remember when you and I were kind of going over when they announced those starters, and they basically made it sound like Quaxley had OCD. I was like, that's my guy. Um, but yeah, I am intrigued to maybe kind of keep an eye on this on the side, because I don't want it to get lost in the sauce of, the Kanto episodes, or the Orange Islands episodes, which I think are technically still Kanto, but either way.
Yeah.
Um,
And we can't
because
really talk too much. I mean, because I mean, the episodes still haven't really been released, so we have to really be um, scarce with how we review it. But I mean, I don't think we gave any big spoilers to the show. But it's just
no, no, no.
no. Um,
But I guess technically you're right. It's not out. It's just it's out if you know where to look.
yes. So that being said, I think we can kind of tie a nice little bow on this episode. It was nice to finally talk. I mean, you got a little bit more of an in-depth conversation about Power World. Um, next month, I will give a full review in regards to the DLC for Scarlet and Violet, along with
Yep.
going through Pokemon Day for next month, and then we got to kind of talk about Pokemon Horizons a little bit. Before we stop, and this is not a spoiler thing for Pokemon Horizons, but um, can I think we can kind of tell our audience that to kind of get ready for a different type of Pokemon battles than what we're used to, because they totally take a different type of approach for Pokemon battles in Horizons, at least so
Oh
far.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, granted, I got a little bit of experience, in the two episodes that I watched. But yeah, it didn't seem like battles were as, I want to say, formal.
Yeah.
Like they just kind of happened. I think at one point in the second episode, there's a conversation between two characters, and one of them was like, "All right, you want to finish what we started back there?" And the guy was basically like, "Bet," and like they they kind of found neutral corners and squared off.
Yep.
So, um,
Completely different than what Ash is used to, right?
but yeah, where he basically had to be on the opposite end of somebody, and he had to determine how many we were allowed to use and
Yep.
who had the first go. And yeah,
So,
it kind of seemed like Pokemon battles are kind of take a catch as catch can approach,
yes.
and they're going to be a little bit more of a free for all. Which, well, okay, free for all is probably the wrong word because free for all makes it sound like if you've got six Pokemon on your belt, you can throw them all out. But
Like
kind of a
like there's a formality to it, but they they definitely show that yeah, there's a way to Pokemon battle, but if you're gonna do a different type of battle or you're just squaring off with a random person, that you guys kind of make up your own rules and it's gonna be a freaking brutal battle.
right.
So
Because it kind of seemed like the combat was a little bit more aggressive.
yes, that's the word. The
There you
Pokemon
go.
battles are more aggressive. They're more mature. So
Right.
so
I mean,
okay.
that's not to say somebody's getting killed, but
No.
yeah, I understand. I understand I personally understand what you're saying, and I'm sure our audience does as well.
Okay. Well, that being said, thanks for jumping on for this month's PokeBreak, bro.
Yeah. Obviously, our audience won't feel this, but we had a bit shorter of a window between finishing um Pokemon Concierge and this. So I don't really feel the need to jump into reviewing Pokemon Concierge because my thoughts really haven't changed in the what, less than a week since we covered the last episode.
Yes.
I do appreciate Pokemon Concierge. It was like a nice warm blanket, but I'm excited to get back into the swing of the Orange Islands. Um, and hopefully not have any more surprised banned episodes for a while.
Let's keep our fingers crossed, bro. But all right, well, thanks for jumping on. I am excited to get back into the Kanto region myself, or Orange Islands. I don't know how people classify it, but all right, bro. Well, thanks for jumping on, and go ahead and say goodbye, Doug.
Goodbye, Doug.
And this is Professor Chris G telling all of you we'll be back with the Orange Islands as of next week, and you got a taste of it a few weeks ago, so that's where we're headed. So have a good night, everybody, and we'll see you again next week.